CIL 650 presents It's Your Money, an up-close and personal look at your finances. Here's your host, Fred Snyder.
Up in the morning and out to school.
And indeed, it really is up close and personal. And we're talking about your money, more importantly about your money and how to keep it. And generally speaking, we don't do a very good job of that, and it's my job to fix that. It's my job to teach you what you need to know so that you can make better financial decisions and more of them so that you can become financially independent sooner and stay financially independent longer. Today we're going to talk about reverse mortgages. Get a lot of questions about this particular topic, and I know there's a tremendous lack of knowledge when it comes to reverse mortgages. People are very opinionated about this particular issue, and I decided it would be a great idea to have somebody who specializes in reverse mortgages on this show so we can educate our listeners about reverse mortgages. And we're going to talk about that for the better part of the next 2 hours. And we share this show with you, our listeners. We expect your calls. So if you have any questions, get on the line and give us a call. Remember, once again, we're talking about your money and how to keep it. And statistically speaking, if you take 100 people who started equal today at the age of 25, by the time they end up at 65, one is wealthy. Only one out of 100. 4 are well-to-do. 5 are still working. 36 don't have to worry anymore because they're dead. And the remaining 54 are dead broke, dependent on family and state. Sad state of affairs. And I believe fervently that the major reason why people fail financially is called lack of a plan. And if you don't have a plan, you're planning to fail by default. So if you're out there, you're listening to the show, ask yourself the question, do I have a financial plan? Do I have a written document that says this is where I stand right now, this is where I want to go, and this is how I'm going to get there? Do you have a plan to do that? If you do, that's step one. That's just first base. Because you may need an advisor or somebody to coach you or help you along the way to make that plan work. No point in getting a written financial plan that you put on the shelf, you don't understand it, you never look at it, you never review it. That's what happens to a lot of people. You got to get proactive about your money, and you have to become proactive when it comes to financial planning. The number to call is area code 604-280-0650. Long distance 1-877-280-0650. You can log on. You can see what we look like, www.CIL650.com. And if you're shy or reluctant to talk on the air for any reason, you want to make an appointment to see myself for a review of your financial affairs, to get a written financial plan at no cost or obligation, to get an analysis of your investment portfolio, all you have to do is call Frida, 604-737-3512, long distance 1-800-661-1495. Joining me is Clinton J. Grayson, representing Home Equity Bank. And Home Equity Bank specializes in reverse mortgages. And he's an accredited mortgage broker as well. He knows the business extremely well. So I'm going to pretend that I don't know anything about reverse mortgages, although I know a fair amount. I'm going to pretend I don't. And I'm going to interview him, and you can take advantage of that information or call in for clarification. Once again, 604-280-0650, long distance 1-877-280-0650. Log on, www.CIL650.com. And for those who are shy, Frida down at the office, 604-737-3512. Long distance 1-800-661-1495. So, Clint, welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me, Fred.
Now, I'm just going to pretend I don't know anything. So tell us what you do.
Well, that's a very broad question.
Deliberately so.
One of our primary purposes is to really help support and accentuate retirement for homeowners in Canada.
Yeah.
What we find is what's out in the marketplace right now is a lot of unexpecteds, not completely different to, challenges that people are facing with, how to make their money last longer. But the unexpected changes that happen in the marketplace, and we're really there to support that for homeowners that are 55 and older. The way that we do that is we allow people to tap into the equity in their home in a tax-free way. And that's one of the most important things. And I know from a financial planning point of view, the planners that we deal with like yourself, that's really critical in making a more tax-efficient plan. One of the things that is front and center, and you brought something out, there's a lot of misunderstanding, I think, is
Tremendous amount of misunderstanding
out in the marketplace about what we do. And the great news is most of that has no basis in truth, and that's really the good news.
Okay, let's just take an example. I heard an article the other day on the radio that said the average house price in Vancouver is $1 million. Average.
Yeah,
Is that true?
I'd love to find that $1 million home because I haven't seen one quite that cheap yet.
Oh my God, they're even more expensive. So if you got a house that's worth $1 million, how much money could you get by way of a reverse mortgage, and what would you do with that money?
Good question. Well, I can tell you, and it's better if I use an example as well. So let's use the real world. A lady that I got introduced to about 2 weeks ago, her and her husband bought a home 44 years ago in the Marpole area. They bought that home for $57,800. 44 years later, the appraisal on the home came in at $2.5 million. That's more than 9% growth year over year for the last 44 years.
A lot of growth there.
There's a lot of growth. And the good news is, her and her husband, they did everything right. They were working with a financial planner. They put money away. What they were planning for was basically 8 to 12 years in retirement. And then reality happened. She's in her 80s now, and she's outlived her investments. And they did everything right. They paid their home off. They put money away. They went into retirement with no debt. The good news is she's still around to enjoy it, but the challenge that she was facing is, what do I do now? I don't want to move.
You don't want to be broke.
Don't want to be broke. And the good news is she's not broke. So she's still...
So how much could she take out of the house by way of a reverse mortgage?
So there's two different products that we have. There's the CHIP reverse mortgage, and there's the income advantage cash flow solution. Under the CHIP program, she could get up to 55% of that home equity, which on a $2.5 million home, you're looking at about $1.25 million.
Okay, so if you invested $1.25 million with me, I could generate an income around $100,000 a year quite easily.
That would be a pretty nice retirement, and that would certainly last her the rest of her life.
And okay, so let's say that's me. I take out this reverse mortgage, and I got this money to invest. How much do I have to pay you? What are my payments?
That's another great question. Fred, I'm glad that you're asking all the good questions, because this is where we shine against all other products that are available to homeowners in Canada, is we require no monthly payments.
I don't have to make a payment.
You do not have to make a payment.
And if I took a home equity line of credit, I'd have to make a payment.
You absolutely would. Even the very best ones require an interest-only payment, whereas our product is the only product in Canada that truly doesn't require a payment.
This sounds too good to be true.
You know what? I hear that a lot, and I'll be truthful, Fred. I felt exactly the same way before I came to work for Home Equity Bank.
So I don't have to make any payments. Let's suppose I have a mortgage already on my house, and my monthly payment is $1,000 or $2,000. Doesn't really matter, arbitrary number. But let's say I'm making a payment on a mortgage. I could get a home equity line of credit that would pay that mortgage off, give me some additional cash, and I wouldn't even have to make the mortgage payment anymore.
Yeah, that would be a great solution, much more tax efficient. Sometimes just freeing up that cash flow can really help slow the pace of redemptions for the assets they still have under management. So the overall picture for the client is much better.
So I now have cash flow, which can pay for a spouse who has Alzheimer's that's in long-term care someplace. I now have cash flow where I could take a cruise every year if I so wanted to. A nice vacation every year. I have cash flow where I can make home improvements and all kinds of other things. I could install a basement suite and generate some more income from that. Okay? So all of a sudden I got a whole pot full of money. I've been able to access this equity in my house. It's right there in my at my fingertips. I can access it and I can use it productively.
Absolutely.
Wow. And there's a multitude of investments available. So if I had $1 million to invest, I could put that into an investment portfolio of mutual funds. I could put it into an investment portfolio of segregated funds. I could put it into a GLWB, which guarantees me an income for life. I got a lot of options. I could buy stocks. You wouldn't stop me from doing that, would
No,
you?
it's
my
your
money.
That's right.
So I mean, I could day trade.
Well, I
You
don't.
wouldn't recommend it.
I wouldn't recommend that.
Yeah.
We always work and partner with people like yourself for the reason that in those types of solutions, managed money is definitely a better. You want advice? We would never recommend anybody day trade without.
Well,
the
that's
experience.
speculation.
Exactly.
That's really pure speculation. You know, if you take, I have a cohort that I have on the program, the odd time. His name is Dr. Don Nixdorf, and he's a chiropractor. Okay, but we talk about health and wealth often, and we also talk about the fact that people are living longer. You know, I remember this very well when they launched the Canada Pension Plan way back in 1965. I had a fellow that I had just hired by the name of John Craker, and I was training him. And John Craker was an actuary for the federal government, who was fired at the time because he spoke out against the Canada Pension Plan. He said it won't work. Okay? And I remember the publicity that he got out of that. It was unbelievable. But I also remember the details because I had many discussions with him when I was driving around to see clients and things like that. And he said at that time that the average life expectancy for a Canadian who's 65 is age 70. 5 years. So when the Canada Pension Plan was launched, it only had to provide income for 5 years. Now, the average life expectancy for a Canadian male today is 83, 84, and increasing. And there may come a time in the not too distant future with medical science, they can actually print body parts now using 3D printing. Okay? There may come a time when life expectancy is 120. So if you've planned for your money to last until you're 90, your money runs out at 90, and now you're broke between 90 and 120. You have no money. You'd want to die. You wouldn't want to live that extra time, okay? But a reverse mortgage might be the answer.
Absolutely. In fact, it's funny that you bring up that. There was a study that was done last year, and for a 65-year-old couple, 1 in 2 have a 50% chance of living to the age of 92.
Yeah.
So that's a huge portion of the population.
During my career, which spans too many years to mention, but I've had half a dozen clients that have been over 100. In 1965, the first year I was in this business, I did business with a lady in Winchester, Ontario. Her name was Desdemona Nesbitt. She was 102.
Whoa.
And she invested $5,000 with me for her son who was 85. It's a fact. Long time ago.
Wow. That's a good mother.
Yeah. And I understand there's somewhere between 3,000 and 5,000 Canadians right now that are over 100.
There are. In fact, our oldest client is 104.
Yeah.
And my oldest client here in the Vancouver area where I'm located is 97, and we did the mortgage for him last February.
So age is not a factor with a reverse mortgage?
Age is not a factor. What we look at is we look at the value of the property and where it's located and the condition of the property via an appraisal.
So you get an appraisal on the house, and you got to say $1 million value. You can get a reverse mortgage for about $500,000 bucks.
Yeah, on average. So age does play a part in the sense that the younger somebody is, we are more conservative. So
You'd have to be because life expectancy is longer.
Exactly. So at 55, where we start lending, they wouldn't get access to the full 55%. That would graduate up as they got older.
So the age limitation is 55.
That's where we start lending is 55.
Okay. And what about deferring property taxes?
We're actually the only mortgage that allows property tax deferral behind us.
So you could actually have a reverse mortgage and defer your property taxes on top of that.
Yeah, which is another great tax efficient part of a plan, right?
Well, I counsel people all the time to defer their property taxes.
Yeah, I'm hoping the government doesn't catch on, because the 1% simple interest is as nice as it gets.
Well, they get the money at the end of the day anyway.
That's right.
So with a reverse mortgage, give me a worst case scenario. Is there such a thing?
Well, worst case scenario is if there was a drastic fluctuation in the housing market and the client had to sell at that time. So just much, think of the stock market or mutual funds. You don't want to buy high and sell low. So the only time that there would ever be a concern is that if in a low in the housing market, the property had to be sold at that time to repay the mortgage. The good news is we're the only mortgage product in North America that has what's called a fair market value guarantee. So we guarantee they'll never be in a negative equity position when it comes to paying us back. If that happens, we will eat the loss as a bank. So when you're looking at a strategy that you mentioned earlier, and let's use $1 million for ease of numbers. And the client took out $500,000, so half of that money, and re-diversified their investment portfolio. So instead of having all of their assets just in their house, they gave you money and you re-diversified, so lowering the overall risk profile.
Yeah.
And as you know, that makes sense when you're saving. It also makes sense when you're in the deaccumulation phase, when you're tapping into that portfolio. And for the specific reason that if one of those channels loses its value, it hasn't impacted the whole portfolio. So if that house happens to lose its value, the good news is one, they don't have to sell. We'll never ask somebody to sell. They can stay there, so time is on their side. But if in that situation they were in a negative equity position, we wouldn't go after their other assets. So even the money that had been taken out and rebuilt the portfolio for them is protected.
So I got to make sure I got this straight. So you're saying that if someone has a reverse mortgage of $500,000, and maybe when the reverse mortgage was put in place, the value of the house was $1 million, but the value of the house drops to less than $500,000, could you call that?
We would not, and we're the only product in Canada that won't.
Other reverse mortgage lenders can. Is that what you're saying?
Well, the good news is we are the only provider of reverse mortgage in Canada.
I thought you were, yeah.
But if they had a home equity line of credit or a traditional mortgage, it could certainly be called.
Well, sure. There's no question about that. I know that.
Yeah.
But with a reverse mortgage, it's non-callable.
That's one of the biggest protections we provide for our clients.
So let's say someone takes out a reverse mortgage and they live to be 100. And all of a sudden, the reverse mortgage, the amount owing, interest and principal and all the rest of it is accumulated to $1 million. No problem.
No problem.
You're taking the risk, not the client.
That's right. We're taking all the risk. And the good news is we've been doing this for 30 years. And 99% of the time, when it's time for us to be repaid, there's still more than half the equity of the home left. So that's a lot to go on to the estate.
When is this time? What causes this to happen? Death or what?
Well, it puts the client back in control. So if the client decides they want to move or sell, okay, that's a time that we would have to be repaid.
They have to pay off, yeah.
If the last survivor passes away that's living in the home.
Yes.
So, and that's fairly common nowadays. So if you had, you mentioned earlier, a client where one spouse moved into a care facility or home and one remained at home,
yes.
that last spouse or that last client in that home, when they leave either due to death or they need to move into a care facility, that's when we would have to get paid back. So it really puts them back in control.
Okay. So if there's negative equity, then how do they pay you back?
We would eat the loss. So we would just get paid back.
So there's no real risk to the client.
No, not to traditional.
The risk is to the client's kids.
To the client's kids, and frankly, I can tell you most of the clients that I deal with, the kids want their parents to enjoy their retirement.
So the kids, basically, if you do a reverse mortgage, you're using that money to live better today, and why wouldn't the kids support that in most cases?
Yeah. In fact, what I come across quite often is the kids are already supporting the parents, and so it's actually today, it's diminishing their lifestyle today because they're having to take money out of the money they're using for raising their family, their daily living, to support their retired parents.
In many cases, you could defer your property taxes, use the money that would normally be used to pay the property taxes to buy a life insurance policy. Proceeds of a life insurance policy are tax-free, and that could be used to pay off the reverse mortgage if need be.
Absolutely. And in fact,
And,
you could even use the proceeds to do that as well.
and that would help the kids.
Absolutely.
So would the kids rather have the tax-free proceeds from a life insurance policy paid for with deferred taxes, or the proceeds that's left over out of the house? And in many cases, here's a good question. Have you ever seen a scenario where somebody did have negative equity at the end of the day?
I haven't seen it. In the 30 years we've been doing this, it's only happened 6 times. So it's something that's extremely rare. And the times that it happened, quite frankly, they were really out of the control of the client and us as well. My understanding was it happened when there was a factory closed down in a town, and you know, the town experienced quite a large influx on the market of homes.
Yeah, okay. Very interesting. So let's kind of summarize what we've talked about so far.
Well, here we are. So we have 2 products that are available. We start lending at 55 years of age. We don't require a payment, and it's easy qualifying. So we use your age, the value of your home, where the home is located, and the appraised value to determine how much you'll have access to. There's a fair market value guarantee that protects you and your estate from a negative equity position. And the good news is there's foreclosure protection. You never have to worry about somebody knocking on the door, so it puts you back in control.
So like deferring your property tax, you don't have to make any payments.
You don't have to make any payments at all.
And it would be a really good product for someone who didn't have any kids.
Oh yeah,
Because children becomes, oh, I want to leave something to my kids. And I think they over worry about that maybe too much, because the chances of not leaving something to the kids aren't great. And if it does become a worry, defer your property taxes, buy a life insurance policy, make the kids the beneficiary.
Absolutely.
Tax-free money, you're laughing all the way to the bank.
Yeah, and I see those individuals that don't have kids, they want to leave money sometimes to a charity or a church, and they can do it that way as well. So the good news is 99% of the time there's lots of money to pass on to the estate, even if they got to enjoy their retirement.
Well, this is really all about good financial planning.
This
is all about being able to define the options that are available and choosing the best option. And if the objective is to create additional income or better cash flow, this seems to be a fabulous way to do that, an exciting way to do that.
Absolutely. I can tell you the income advantage is I'm not retiring for 25 years, but it's already part of my retirement plan.
Yeah. That's a good idea.
It's a great idea. Looking forward is a huge thing. Right
now,
now
you say that this money from the reverse mortgage is tax-free. Can I get payments from a reverse mortgage, or do I have to take a lump sum?
Yeah, you can do it both ways. So the income advantage, hence the name, can give you that monthly cash flow. And that works well when planners are dealing with somebody where they're either trying to slow the pace of redemption from their existing assets and preserve it, make it last longer, because we all know we're living longer. And taking that monthly cash flow also has another benefit, is not only are you're slowing down the assets that you're taking out that you already have, you're being more tax efficient, and money that's going to tax, it's never coming back. You're not earning future earnings on it. And this is where I think the tax efficiency really plays a strong role for financial planners when they're dealing with their clients. Is if the house is probably one of the best investments that people made in their lifetimes 35, 40 years ago. Even today, it still seems to be going up each year, year over year. The Canadian Real Estate Association has the last 15 years growth at over 6%, and that's during the worst recession in 80 years. If we look back over 35 years, it's about 5% growth. So the numbers are there to support. We can expect future growth. There's no guarantee in that house, but it's really been a stable asset. Tapping into that asset, it's going to continue to grow. So imagine you had a portfolio where a client had $500,000 and they took $100,000 out. Now they only have $400,000, so only $400,000 is earning interest. In that $1 million house, if you take $100,000 or $500,000 out, it's still worth $1 million, and it's still growing at the market value. It's really one of the best investments for planners to use to strengthen that portfolio.
Well, it's like a TFSA.
Yeah.
A TFSA grows tax-free too. Okay? The only difference between the house and the TFSA, there's no limit on how much you can invest in the house. The TFSA has limits. So if you make a return of 15% or whatever you make on your TFSA, that's tax-free money. If your house grows at 15%, that's tax-free money. If you take that equity out, that's tax-free money.
Absolutely.
Okay. So there's all kinds of planning things that you can do. I use that idea of deferring the property taxes, using the money that's recovered by so doing, to use that to pay the premium on a life insurance policy, and the proceeds of the life insurance policy are income tax-free.
Absolutely. And that's why we have experts like you, because this stuff, it can be complex, but you're the one who demystifies it. You're the one who makes these concepts simple and easy for us to understand. And that's why I encourage everyone out there listening, if you haven't talked to Fred, give him a call, because
Fred.
Yeah, call Fred. This is what he specialized in, and this is what he does. I'm in this business, and I rely on people like Fred.
Okay. 604-280-0650. Long distance, 1-877-280-0650. Log on, www.CIL650.com. For those who are shy, Frida's down at the office at your beck and call, 604-737-3512. Long distance, 1-800-661-1495. Talking about your money, more importantly about your money and how to keep it. And if you just tuned in, I'm certified financial planner Fred Snyder, also a registered financial planner representing Scotia McLeod. And I'm here with Clint Grayson, who represents Home Equity Bank. And is that like a Level 1 bank, or what is it?
We are a Schedule 1 bank. In 2009, we got our charter, and it's a great, and we're really proud of it. We're one of the quickest charters that were issued.
And you're also a accredited mortgage broker.
I'm an accredited mortgage professional in Canada. I've been in the industry for a decade, and this is what I devote my specialty in, is reverse mortgages.
And if you have any questions, even about mortgages, they could call you right now.
They could certainly give a call about mortgages as well. There's a stat that I wanted to share with you, which really kind of opened my eyes on to what's going on in the marketplace in Canada. So in Canada, we have roughly 35.5 million citizens, and 13.3 of them own homes. Here's the thing that really kind of opened my eyes.
13.3 million people.
13.3 million people
out
own
of 35
homes,
million. Okay.
And 5.6 million are 55 plus. That's 42% of all homeowners are 55 plus.
Wow.
Couple that with the fact that people are living longer, not having the home as an active part of your retirement strategy, you're literally cutting off one of your legs. So,
well, I tell everybody the best investment strategy of all is to own the roof over your head.
Absolutely.
Okay. It's tax-free money. And there's no limits. There's limits to your RRSP. There's limits to your TFSA. But I could buy a $10 million house if I had the cash someplace. And if it increases in value, it's tax-free money.
It's tax-free money.
Let's talk to Maria from Vancouver. Maria, welcome to the program.
Hi, thank you. Good morning.
Good morning, Maria. How you doing?
I'm doing good. This is a very good subject because it actually touches on my mom, but my mom does not know I'm making this phone call because it's just happening right now.
Well, we won't tell her, Maria.
I've actually been trying to help her because my dad passed away. It'll be a year on October 21st, and he used to get several pensions because he worked in Germany. He was a prisoner of war, and he worked in Italy. Then he came to Canada. He had a bunch, I won't say how many, but quite a few pensions. But when he passed away, they mostly dried up. And she's got a couple of little ones coming to her soon. It's already been a year. She's not receiving yet. But I told her, why don't you take some money off the home? Now, the home is paid. It's 25 years old. It's a beautiful home out in Surrey. She did lend my brother a couple of $100,000 for an investment that he made for himself. That's getting paid off on time. But I've been trying to tell my mom to take out either a $50,000 reverse mortgage or a little bit better, $100,000 reverse mortgage. Like I've been listening to the program, she doesn't want to do it because she wants to leave all the money to the 4 children. And I keep saying to her, why do you have to starve to leave us a little bit more? So I'm hoping that I'm going to get an answer that I can pass on to her.
One of the things that I hear is not completely dissimilar to the situation that you're facing, Maria. Often parents, they also feel proud, like leaving that legacy is important to them. When I'm meeting with clients, and I hear this fairly regularly, I just share with them, I said, the good news is you're going to be able to do both. So that home that you're living in, I often frame it in something that's real to them. How long has your mom been in the home, Maria? Do you know?
Well, they used to live in Vancouver. They moved to Surrey to help out with babysitting my brothers. So 26 years. And the home used to belong to my brother, but something went wrong, and my mom saved the house. She sold the one in Vancouver so they could save the new house in Surrey. But she's been there herself since 1989. I don't know exactly when she lent my brother a large sum. To me, it's a large sum. Anything over 100,000 is a lot of money to me. And so my brother is paying it back every month. He makes the payments. I would say the house is worth between $650 and $750. It's a huge lot because back in the 80s, the lots were big. Everything was bigger back then. And the house is in beautiful condition. She may be 85, but she can clean like a 45. So, we have to stop putting pictures of an 85-year-old in a care home doing nothing. No, it's not like that for everybody. I'm very lucky. She's still making meals for herself. She still cleans the whole place by herself. And yesterday we went by cab to Superstore in Surrey on 104. She does her own shopping. She's the only old lady in Surrey that still does a buggy full of shopping for one person.
Well, that sounds great. I'm so glad to hear that your mom is still so vibrant.
Yes, I'm very lucky, except she's broke. She's broke because, she's been too generous when she should have hung on to it.
Right. Well, one of the things that I use when I'm talking with clients is just to help them understand their own situation. So, when you talk to your mom, ask her if she remembers what she paid for the home back in 1988, I think you said, and then what it's worth today. That's going to continue to happen. So not only can she tap into that equity today and use it so that she can actually enjoy her active life at this point.
How do I make her stop thinking about wanting to leave that nice lump? Because she's already got it all figured out. If my brother has not paid back the full amount by the time she leaves this earth, then he doesn't get that share of it. That share will be added on to whatever he would have been entitled to. Do you know what I'm trying to say? If he was supposed to get 200, let's say when my mom passes away, and he still owes 140, then he's just going to get 60.
Yeah, and that sounds like an equitable thing that your mom's going to do. But what if she could do both? What if she could do what she wants, leave that legacy, but she could also enjoy her retirement today?
That's what I'm asking. I'm glad I'm called. I mean, I really do want her to leave us a little bit less, and I would like for her to have the freedom of going into the mall and picking up something because she's got the money to do it, instead of just going to, Superstore, put it on Visa, pay the credit line. I mean, it's really doesn't feel good.
Yeah, well, what I encourage you to do is reach out to Frida and set up an appointment with your mom to talk with Fred. And what he can do is he can show some examples so your mom can see the real numbers that she can do all of the things she wants to do, enjoy her life today, and leave a legacy.
All right. Okay, now it's just a matter of getting my mom to believe me.
Well,
the reason they live a long life is because they're not gullible. They really want to be sure of what they're doing.
Maria, there's an old saying that a picture is worth 1,000 words. And anybody who's logged on, you can see this graph that's on my screen. And I'm comparing here a case study to one of my model portfolios, 10.6. And the red line is the model portfolio, and the blue line is the case study. And you can see that the difference over the period of time illustrated is the difference between almost 203,000 and 150,000.
Wow.
It's a huge difference. And really, the investments are both the same period of time, and the investments in my model portfolio, the risk is less than it is in the actual portfolio the client has. So anytime you can invest money at less risk and get a better rate of return, that's what you want to do. And the picture tells the story. Okay?
Yes.
And I'm using Morningstar Advisor Workstation to generate these numbers, and they're unbelievable. They're not arguable, they're not debatable, they're a matter of public record. Those are the numbers. Why would anybody choose Portfolio 2 over Portfolio 1? You'd be crazy if you did.
Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do this gently, because if I approach her tomorrow, she'll just say, no, I'm not interested. So I'm going to discuss it with her in a slow pace so that she can keep up with what I'm about to say, and then set up an appointment with Frida. If I get her there, it's half the battle is over. So the part is, that's why I'm calling. I need to know what to do, because I want to see her enjoy it. I'm not a selfish person whatsoever. I'd rather see my mom show me something she bought than to look at her like, oh, Mom, I feel so sorry for you. Who wants that for their mom after they've spent a lifetime caring for you?
You got it. You're right on.
Anyways, thank you so much. I will do my best and keep up the good work. I think a lot of people listening today are going to have something to say themselves to their own family member. And I know we all love our parents, so we should do the best for them, because when they're gone, they are gone. And having regrets, that's got to be the worst feeling on earth.
Well, life shouldn't be all about whatever we're going to inherit.
No, and the thing is, money does not buy a parent, and if you haven't learned that yet, it's going to be a hard lesson in the future.
And your parents are entitled to enjoy their wealth in their remaining years, rather than pass it on to the children. Why would you enhance the lifestyle of your children at your expense?
Right.
Today.
I wouldn't want my children to put that kind of pressure on me.
No.
Don't spend any money because you got to leave it to me. That makes no sense. It's not a very healthy way to go.
Maria, I can't tell you how much I appreciate your call.
Oh, thank you, and thank you so much for all the kind words I just heard.
And thanks for being on the show. I really appreciate it. You take care.
Thank you. Have a good day.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
We have to take a break. We're overdue. So we're going to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to continue to talk about reverse mortgages. Don't go away.
Fred Snyder.
Statistically, if you take 100 people who start out equal today at the age of 25, by the time they end up at 65, 1 is wealthy, 4 are well-to-do, 5 are still working, 36 are dead, and the rest are dead broke, dependent on family and state. That's over half the people who start out equal at age 25, by the time they end up at 65, are dependent on family and state. And that's a sad state of statistics.
Fred Snyder.
You need a blueprint that says, this is where you're at right now, and this is where you want to go, and this is the way to get there.
Fred Snyder.
So isn't it time to get that good, warm, fuzzy feeling because you know exactly where you're at? You know that your investments are going to work for you. You know that you have the right investments inside your financial plan. You're confident about the future because you've covered all the bases. You know exactly how much life insurance you need, and you have the right amount of insurance. You have a financial advisor, such as myself, or somebody that's equally competent that you can check with to determine whether you're on track or not. And whether you're on track or not, I'd like to use the analogy, do you have a GPS?
Fred's got your GPS. Talk to Fred. Listen to Fred. Fred Snyder. Sunday mornings 9 to 11 on CIL 650. This is CISL Vancouver. Smooth and easy. CIL 650. This is It's Your Money on CIL 650. Here once again is Fred Snyder.
Okay, we are back, and we're talking to you about your money. More importantly, about your money and how to keep it. And the key word in that sentence is keep. We don't do a good job of that. we work for most of our lives earning money. We don't accumulate much, so we don't have a second income that's very substantial when we retire. Most of us have a house, equity in the house, a lot of equity. We're talking right now about how you can access that equity with no effect on your cash flow. Wow. Too good to be true. Maybe you should give a reverse mortgage to the government of Canada.
If we only could.
They wouldn't be able to take all that interest that we have to pay them when we send that check to CRA.
Oh yeah, I hate to think about that.
I mean, it's murder when you think about it. I mean, I went through the statistics here last week, and we have an election coming up. And I say this, ladies and gentlemen, listeners out there, I'm not going to tell you how to vote except for one thing. I'm going to say pick your politicians wisely, because the politicians you pick may have a tremendous impact upon your future financial circumstances. Think about that for a minute. Dig deep into that one. Give it some careful thought. Pick your politicians wisely. That simply means vote for fiscal policy. Vote for the budget that you will anticipate. I ask people all the time, I say, who are you going to vote for? And they tell me. And I say, why? Well, I like them better. They can't tell me why. Okay? That's sick.
Yeah, it was a good soundbite.
That's sad. Okay? You have to pick your politicians wisely. Pick your financial planner wisely. Because your financial planner is going to give you advice which is going to determine your future financial welfare. And I don't mean that you're on welfare. Okay? And you're going to live longer because of advances in medical technology. So what would happen if you lived to be 120 but you're broke at 90? Your money dies when you're 90 and you live to be 120. You got 30 years with no money. Well, you got the Canada Pension Plan. But maybe it's broke by then because all of a sudden they have to pay it out for 40 and 50 years rather than the 5 years they anticipated when they first launched it. Okay? So you want to make sure that your income lasts for life. So if you're out there right now, there's a product that's available to investors called the GLWB. That stands for Guaranteed Lifetime Withdrawal Benefit Programs. They're issued by life insurance companies. And that's like buying a defined benefit pension plan. So you put in a certain amount of money. Let's say you put in $100,000. They'll guarantee you 5% as a pension, guaranteed for life. So that's $5,000 a year for life. And the principal is liquid. This is like buying an annuity that's cashable. Now, you understand these products, I presume, okay? So you can buy an annuity that guarantees you an income for life, but the principal is not accessible. But a GLWB, it is. Okay? So that income that you're getting can't die before you do.
Sounds like a great product.
If you live to be 200, the income is still continuing. Even though your principal may have gone to zero because of bad markets or whatever, the income continues.
Wow.
And those products are issued by life insurance companies, and the best one that I'm aware of right now is Canada Life. And that was founded by Canada's first Prime Minister, a very solid organization. That's out there. So if you're looking for income, that's one way to get it. But another way to get the income to buy a GLWB that we're talking about could very well be a reverse mortgage. So that takes us right around the circle. We're right back to reverse mortgages. So a reverse mortgage is a mortgage against your house that you don't make any payments on, and the payments that are required are added to the amount owing. Okay? So over time, the mortgage, the outstanding balance gets bigger and bigger and bigger. But by the same token, hopefully, the equity, the growth in the value of the house is increasing as well. And hopefully it's increasing faster than the mortgage. And historically, it likely has. Am I correct to say that?
That's true. In fact, it really only has to grow at about half of what it's grown over the last 30 years just to maintain the remaining equity in the home. So people have done very well. One of the questions that we get asked quite a bit is, should a reverse mortgage only be considered a loan of last resort? And the answer is clearly no. we really deal with a broad spectrum of clients. So typically when people think reverse mortgage, they think of somebody who only has a house and no other assets. And that certainly does make up a portion of our clients. But we also deal with people who have assets and are trying to slow that pace of redemption, and they're working with planners. We also have people who just want to remain in their home, but they have health issues and they don't know how to pay for the care to bring in the house. So
The nurse next door.
the nurse next door type product.
Yeah.
And those are the things that we're able to do. The fourth type, and kind of relates to what Maria was talking about, the caller we had earlier, we have parents that want to help their children now, but don't want to deplete the assets that they're counting on to live off of. But they're planning on leaving the house. So it's an opportunity there as well.
So you could do a reverse mortgage and loan the money to your kids to buy another house.
Exactly. And we call them a warm inheritance. You're still breathing and warm, and you can actually see your children benefit from it. So those four categories we see out there. There isn't one that's really more than another, and they're all specific. I mean, it's too bad that too many people don't take the time to really look into all of their options that are available to them, because they can really go a long time with, in what I call the making my bed, I'm going to sleep in it syndrome. The good news is this generation, 42% of them made their bed extremely well. They bought a house and paid it off or near paid it off prior to retirement. So the opportunity there is huge for them to enjoy it, especially when there's products like what you just talked about available to them out there, where they can actually set themselves up for a lifetime and not have to worry about it. And in all likelihood, leave lots to their estate.
So if someone wanted to participate or get or acquire a reverse mortgage, what would they do? What's the first step?
Well, the first step is to reach out to the person you're dealing with. So in your case, call Fred. Fred can set up an appointment with us where we can.
And you make house calls.
We'll make house calls if that need be. We have many good people to deal with. If it's an information-based thing or people are comfortable, we can deal over the phone as well. So what makes sense to the client, we're going to do for the client. Quite often when we're dealing with clients that we're getting through, financial planners like yourself, there's always already a good understanding in place. So those ones are fairly simple. But just understanding the product, sometimes just hearing them and asking the questions that are out there alleviates a lot of the fear. One of the big questions that I get is, will the bank own the home? And the answer is no. We don't buy homes from people. We just give them access to the equity in the home.
So this is a way to tap into that equity that you've built up over all these years, that tax-free equity. Get yourself some cash. And how you spend that cash is entirely up to you.
Yes.
Whatever you do with it.
Yeah.
If I decide to put a reverse mortgage on my house and get myself a 40-foot yacht, no problem.
If that's what you wanted to do.
Might not be a good idea.
Might not be a good idea.
My wife would probably shoot me. But that's the thought. Whatever you want to do with that money. Buy yourself a house in a warm climate. Okay? You could do that.
Yeah, I have clients who have actually done that. They've purchased properties in Phoenix. I had one that purchased a property that they could go visit in Victoria. So.
Yeah. Okay. So they would make a phone call to you, and you go to the house. You take an application, and there's no possible way they can get turned down.
Yeah, there's as long as the house is in decent condition, and whatever the appraisal comes back in, it's very unlikely that they wouldn't qualify.
Yeah. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, listeners out there, 604-280-0650. Write the number down. God, surely you must be interested. We're talking about money. We're talking about cash. Someone said it's cold, hard cash, and I say it's not cold, hard at all. It's warm. It's cuddly. It's fuzzy. Makes you feel good. The more you have, the better you feel. Okay? I've had people tell me they don't care about money. I say they lie about other things. Okay? The fact of the matter is, money makes the world go round. Okay? And this is a chance to get some equity out of your house, if it makes sense, or figure out if it makes sense, to get some information so that you can decide when and if you're going to apply that information. That's what we're talking about. 604-280-0650. Long distance 1-877-280-0650. Log on, www.CIL650.com. Free to down at the office at 604-737-3512. Long distance 1-800-661-1495. Now, if you didn't get all those numbers and you're driving your car, you're out there, just call Frida, 604-737-3512. Because she can give you all the other numbers if necessary. I'll give that one out once again, 604-737-3512. If you just tuned in, I'm certified financial planner Fred Snyder, also registered financial planner representing Scotia McLeod, and my raison d'etre, my reason for being, is to help people make better financial decisions by providing them with knowledge. And people fail financially because of lack of knowledge and lack of a plan. So I'm offering both of those, knowledge and a plan. I say there's 3 P's. The first P stands for plan. So just remember 3 P's. First P stands for plan. You need a plan. Second P stands for planning. That's the process. And the last P stands for product. You need the best products in your investment program. Reverse mortgage is a financial product that people need to understand more about, because I know from talking to people, they don't understand them. I have people who are desperate for money. They come in and see me and I say, why don't you consider a reverse mortgage? Well, I would never do that. My kids would never go along with that. Well, maybe. But maybe if you understood it better, there'd be a change in your thinking.
Absolutely.
That's what we're trying to do here. Let's talk to Ron from Port Moody. Ron, welcome to the program.
Hi there.
Hi, Ron.
Hi, how are you doing?
I can't complain. It wouldn't do a darn bit of good anyway. It doesn't change a thing. Nobody pays any attention, and they usually run away when you start complaining.
There you go. My question is about what to do with the money once you have it. Would it make sense to put it back into the market and just play the percentages so that you're just your investment, the risk that you're taking in the market, is just slightly above what you expect to be making?
Well, Ron, how do you invest right now?
I have a financial planner, and it's pretty moderate risk. I'm thinking, ballpark.
So is your tolerance for risk low, moderate, or high?
Moderate.
Okay, so you're moderate risk.
Yeah.
Your investment portfolio, is it low, moderate, or high risk?
That's all moderate, yes.
You sure it's all moderate?
When that big drop happened, I don't know, a few years ago, I got mostly out of the high risky stuff.
Have you done an X-ray on your portfolio lately? Got a second opinion evaluating it as to risk?
I haven't got a second opinion.
That would be a good idea.
Yeah.
Because I have lots of people come in to see me. I had a retired engineer not very long ago. I did the case study last week. A fellow came in to see me, and he had a portfolio of 17 stocks. And the portfolio in the last year has declined about a 1/3.
Wow.
A year ago, he had 1.5 million. He's got $1 million now. And I said, what's your tolerance for risk? He said, low. And that portfolio is a high-risk portfolio.
Yeah.
9 of the securities he held was energy.
Mm-hmm.
That's oil.
Right.
You know what's happening to the price of oil?
Yeah.
His financial advisor should be shot.
No, I watch mine pretty carefully. I'm mostly invested in Canadian bank stocks. So,
well, you know what happens to the value of financial institutions, or the price per share of financial institutions when interest rates go up, do you?
Yes, I was quite excited to have the interest rates drop, and I've actually
financial institutions do well share price when interest rates drop, not go up.
Yeah, as I say,
You'd know that because you're a bank.
I bet big time that the interest rates would not go up, and that all the swords.
Well, that was a good call.
Yeah.
But it looked like it was going to. But then when the reason the stock market's flying these days is the Fed basically said no increase in interest rates in the foreseeable future.
Right. So I have a couple of properties, so I've got quite a lot of equity, and I'm thinking, wow, I could reverse mortgage all of those and put that back into the stock market.
That might be a good idea. You got to evaluate that, though. You have to sit down with somebody like myself and take a look at what investment portfolios are available, what investment portfolio is more suitable for you. I'm looking here on my computer screen at my lineup of portfolios. This is version 8 and 9, and 10 is the most recent one, which is just below there. So if I go to portfolio 10, which is right, this is 10.6, and that will come up here in a minute. There's a list of the securities in that portfolio coming up here. It's a little slow.
Well, can you give me a ballpark idea of how well your portfolio would have to do in order to sort of match the increases?
Well, portfolio 10.6, if you owned it for the last 5 years, your average rate of return is 12% with very low risk.
So that's easily beating the increase in the...
It beats the market. It beats everything.
Yeah, in
the list of the securities in that portfolio is on my screen right now. But the bottom line is that you want to design a portfolio. You know, you may be listening to the show, and there may be many other people out there, but you can come into my office and sit down with me, and you and I can sit down together, and we can interactively design a portfolio that's suitable for you.
All right, so you just work with the numbers to ensure that.
Well, I say, look, we need a Canadian equity plan. We need a Canadian equity fund. What's the best Canadian equity fund? What's the best Canadian equity growth fund? What's the best Canadian equity value fund based on 5-year performance? I can answer that.
Okay.
I want a Canadian equity fund that doesn't have a lot of energy in it. I can figure that one out for you.
And are the reverse mortgage, the increase in the payments, are those set or do those fluctuate?
There's no payments.
Oh, no, sorry, not the payments, but I believe you mentioned that the payments are added to the reverse mortgage.
Well, the interest rate, what's the interest rate?
The interest rate ranged from prime plus 1.25, which is 3.95% right now, up to 5.49. So there's different terms you can select, fixed versus variable. So you have a full suite of terms to choose from and rates. So it's what makes sense for you, and risk really comes into that as well. Are you the person that wants a longer fixed term so you know how it's going to grow for X number of years? Or are you the person that is, you want variable to take advantage of the lowest rates possible in the marketplace? So that's something that's a personal decision. One thing I want you to think about, Ron, because you asked a very good question, and it really sparks a discussion that a lot of people don't think about when they're thinking about their entire investment portfolio. So if we don't call the house, we just call the house investment A, and we call your portfolio investment B. Okay, whatever that's made up of. Just like you would only not track what's going on in one of them, you can't leave out what's going on in the other portfolio. So you have to track what's going on in portfolio A and in portfolio B as the overall portfolio. So you asked a question, Fred, where you said, what would portfolio B, i.e. the investments, have to do to make sense with portfolio A? If portfolio A itself is growing at a higher interest rate than what the interest is on it, portfolio A is taking care of itself. Everything you're making in portfolio B is responsible for portfolio B, and that's extra, right? So you can't not see what's going on in the increase in the equity of the house, because that's the same as the increase in the portfolio.
All right, and that includes improvements to the house as well, I guess. So if you're putting money back into the house, that your so-called investment A is improving at even a faster rate than it would normally just through the market itself.
It certainly could. And I mean, one of the things that, talking with Fred is a really great thing, because looking at your overall portfolio, if the planner you're dealing with today isn't including your real estate investments as part of that portfolio, that's not a complete plan, right? So I think getting a second opinion and sitting down with Fred and doing that is something that's probably, just for your peace of mind, worth doing.
All right.
See, even if it comes out that I say what you're doing right now is terrific, it's still worth your while to know that. You know, we often say on the show that I'm talking to people right now that don't have a financial plan, lots of them. I'm also talking to people right now that have a financial plan, but they don't understand it.
Right.
People come to me all the time. They come in with this 60-page report, which they call a financial plan. And I asked them, I said, do you understand this? And they say, no. Okay, what's the point if you don't understand it?
Right.
Okay, and then there's people, maybe like yourself, that have a financial plan, kind of understand it, but you want to make sure. You want to get a second opinion. So you come to see me and I say, well, you're on the right track. It's great.
All right.
That's worthwhile.
That sounds good.
And the way you set that up is to call Frida.
Alrighty.
604-737-3512.
I have the numbers.
Okay.
Perfect.
No problem, Ron. I appreciate your call.
Thank you. Take care.
You too.
Take care.
Okay, Ron's number is, that line is now open. So if you're out there, you're listening to the show, get in the line and give us a call. Remember, once again, we're talking about the most important thing in the world. If it's not, it should be, and that's called your money. Okay? Your money. And when we come back, we'll continue to talk about your money. Don't go away. So you got to start thinking about how you're spending your money.
Fred Snyder.
If you can reduce the amount of tax you pay, that means that you get a tax refund. So you get a tax refund means you've really overpaid your taxes. And if you overpay your taxes, what you've really done is loan money to the government. So rule number 1 of my 46 ways to ease the tax bite is don't lend your money to the government.
Fred Snyder.
So pay your taxes. We're not talking about not paying your taxes. We're talking about legal ways to reduce the taxes you pay, not avoid them, to reduce the taxes you pay so that you can have more money to save and invest so that you can achieve your financial goals sooner. And if you're already there, stay there longer, because once you get there, it's your obligation to stay there.
Fred Snyder.
If you have a financial plan and you're somewhere in the middle and you're wondering what tweaks that you should make in that plan to make it what you really want it to be, time to make a phone call. Or if maybe you're just getting started out and you want to get a starter plan, maybe it's time to talk to somebody like myself and get yourself on the right track.
Fred Snyder.
I think that everybody needs to go and make an appointment to see Fred.
Talk to Fred. Listen to Fred. Fred Snyder. Sunday mornings 9 to 11 on CIL 650. Welcome back to It's Your Money on CIL 650. If you have a question for Fred, call 604-280-0650. Now, back to Fred.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, listeners out there, we are back. And the reason we're here today is to teach you what you need to know so that you can make better financial decisions. And those financial decisions will, by and large, determine how successful you are in the future. And most of us, we don't do a very good job. We don't pay ourselves first. We don't have any money to invest. We don't shop for the best products, be it even groceries. Okay? You should shop for life insurance. We alluded to that fact earlier. I can tell you right now that if I shop for a life insurance policy, I can find huge differences in the premium between one company and another for exactly the same thing. So you should shop. You should shop for investment funds. You should maybe shop for stock. Maybe you should shop for a financial advisor. This is your financial coach. This is somebody who's going to help you with your plan for the rest of your life. And don't tell me your money isn't important, because it is. It's your future financial freedom. Two people, look into the future. See yourself when you're 80 or 90 and you're broke. Do you feel good? I don't think so. Okay? Look into the future, see yourself when you're 80 or 90, you got a lot of money in the bank. Do you feel good now? I think so. Okay? You're living in the house that you want to live in rather than the house you're prepared to settle for. You know exactly where you're at financially. You know you're going to get a check every month. And you're not worried about spending it, because you know that next month you're going to have another one. And the month after that, there's going to be another one and another one and another one. And these checks are going to continue for as long as you live. And you're not worried because you know you're on the right track. And if you're not sure whether you're on the right track, it's time to talk to somebody. And I suggest that be myself. 604-280-0650. Long distance, 877-280-0650. Again, you can log on. This is a live show, www.CIL650.com. And some people are shy. They say, I'd love to call the show, but I'm too shy. Well, you want to make an appointment to see me, get a second opinion on your investment portfolio. You want to get a written financial plan, no cost or obligation. You want to book a seat at my next workshop. Frida's down at the office. Right now, just for your convenience, area code 604-737-3512. So if you're driving around in your car and you didn't get all those numbers, just remember that one. 604-737-3512. If you're calling long distance, it's 1-800-661-1495. You just tuned in. I'm certified financial planner Fred Snyder. Big stamp on my back that says certified. Okay? Also registered financial planner representing Scotia McLeod. And again, we're talking about your money, but the most important part of the whole thing is how to keep it. And the best way to do that is to get yourself a plan. And the plan will tell you how to keep it. The plan will say, this is what I have right now. This is where I stand. These are my goals. And this is how I'm going to achieve my goals. And most of the people I talk to don't have well-defined financial goals. The first thing I say to people when they come in my office, I say, tell me about your financial goals. Do you have any well-defined financial goals? And they say, Duh, what do you mean? They don't have, I want to be rich. Well, what the hell does rich mean? What is rich? Okay, it's different things to different people. It's like happiness. So you got to define what rich is, because your goals have to be specific. I want to live in a $2 million house on the water someplace. I want to drive a nice car. I want to have a beautiful yacht. I want to have a place I can go to in the warm winter south, warm climate. That's what I want. How are you going to get that? Well, Clint, reverse mortgage might be one way to start the process. Okay? It's the investments that you make. Someone once said, keep a part of everything you earn, entrust it to experts, and leave it to compound. That's the formula. Keep a part of everything you earn. That means don't spend it all. Don't be broke on payday. Make sure there's something left over at the end of the day. Pay yourself first. Invest that money with experts, somebody like myself, or find somebody that does what I do just as well. Good luck. Hope you do.
Yeah, and and the numbers don't lie. People that work with financial planners like yourself, they're not only are they going to have more at the time of retirement to rely on, is those that are in retirement, they're going to make it last longer by working with a professional like yourself.
You got to make sure your money lives as long as you do. And if you live to be 130, that's tough.
Well, fingers crossed, I'm still walking if I'm alive at that point. It really drives home a point for me that I think is critical for people to understand out there. Is they ask me what does a reverse mortgage client look like, or who's a good candidate? So just in preparing for the show today, I wrote down a list of my last 12 clients. So, and this is the range. So people ask, what does one look like? Well, it looks like a retired judge. It looks like a retired lawyer, a school teacher, a mechanic, a couple entrepreneurs, doctors, trucker, a financial planner that actually really educated me on the use of the home, a client service rep, a nurse, and a Tim Hortons owner, one of the last franchise owners.
That's a broad spectrum.
And they're everyday Canadians.
People
right?
From all walks of life.
From all walks of life. So what is one? It's somebody who wants to be interested and maximize the use of the assets that they have, all of them, right? Mm-hmm. And everyone that I talk to, if they're not working with a planner, I encourage them to meet and work with a planner. How important that is I can't drive that one home enough. that working with a planner, whether you're in the accumulation phase, you haven't retired yet, or you have retired, having a professional manage your money changes the outcome significantly in your benefit. And I'm sure you see that through your portfolio every day.
All the time, all the time. People come in to see me and they show me portfolios that are underperforming. I told you that one case just a minute ago about portfolio dropped $500,000 in the last year. Why? Because everything in that portfolio was risky. And the client says, well, my tolerance for risk is low. Well, how can you buy 17 stocks, over half of which are invested totally in energy? You got to buy low and sell high. That's where the risk is in stocks. You got to trade. You don't know anything about the market, so you're totally dependent on your broker. That's risky. It's got to be. Can't be anything other than risky. And the guy says I'm low risk. That to me is called an unsuitable investment program. And the regulators would not be too happy about that if they saw that situation. Okay, because the regulators say that I have to recommend investment products for clients that are suitable. So the first question I have to ask every client, what is your tolerance for risk? Is it low, moderate, or high? That's a required question. Okay, and secondly, I have to ask them, what is your investment knowledge? Is it low, moderate, or high? Now I ask those questions to 4, 5, 6 people every day. Guess what answers I get almost all the time? I ask them, what's your tolerance for risk? They say low. I say, what's your investment knowledge? They say low. Almost all the time. So I'm talking to thousands of people here right now on this show, and I will say that the vast majority of the people listening to this show, based on my statistics, their investment knowledge is low. And their tolerance for risk is low. And maybe these people need a return of 12% to achieve their financial objectives, but to get a return of 12%, they have to take more risk. That's a dilemma.
And I think
How
there's
do you
probably
balance all that?
Do you find a disconnect with that in the marketplace?
Somewhat, yeah, sometimes. You know, I have somebody that come in to achieve their financial objectives. They need a return of 12%, but their tolerance for risk is 0. That's GICs that you can get 2%. So if you're going to invest at 2% when you need 12, you're guaranteed to miss your goal. It's not going to materialize at all. Okay. So the bottom line is that somehow you have to reconcile that, and the way you reconcile it, maybe you got to adjust the goals. You have to say, well, your goals are too high. It's like I had a fellow, actually my brother-in-law a long time ago, he called me, and he said, I need a financial plan. I said, okay, what do you want to do? He said, I want to get together with you. I said, all right, when do you want to be retired? He said, 2 years. I said, okay, how old are you? He said, 42. I said, fine. I said, how much income do you want when you retire? He said, $100,000 a year. I said, how much money do you have to invest? He said, nothing. I said, that is not, that can't possibly work. You got to adjust your goals. You can't retire in 2 years, as an example, okay? So if you're 40, you might say, I want to retire when I'm 60, maybe 55. The money I need, or the income that I need when I'm 60, inflation adjusted, has to be at least $50,000 a year. And then the question comes about, where am I going to get the $50,000? How much capital do I need to generate the $50,000? Maybe the reverse mortgage is the key to that, to get the capital to provide that. But you can't necessarily retire tomorrow if you don't have any money.
No.
I mean, I don't walk on water. I wish I could, but I don't. It's impossible. So really, your hopes, your plans, your dreams, and your ambitions depend upon one thing, and that's the money you need to be able to get there. But you have to redefine your hopes, your plans, your dreams, and your ambitions into something that's far more specific than that. Like, I want to have a $2 million house. I want to have $1 million in the bank, or an investment portfolio that's worth $1 million. I want to have a real estate portfolio that's worth $1 million or 2 or 3 or whatever the numbers are. I have to sit down and define these goals in crystal clear terms. So I crystallize my thinking and I define all these goals. Then I develop written plans and deadlines. Then I kindle desire. I create a burning desire to achieve these things. I develop the confidence that I need that I can achieve these things. And I make a decision to persist until I succeed. Never give up. Have the iron will determination to pursue your goals regardless of circumstances, criticism, or what other people say, think, or do. That's the goal-achieving process. And that applies to money, but it also applies to all other areas of your life, your social life, your family life, your health, your mental well-being, your spiritual well-being. You need to be able to have goals, and people don't have goals. They don't set goals.
And I can speak from personal experience. Setting of goals is such an important thing. When it comes to finances, what I find is most people get overwhelmed. It's to the point where it's too much for them to think about, and that's where I encourage people. That's people like Fred demystify this for you. They have this knowledge that you need. Just like you wouldn't operate on yourself if you had a kidney issue or an appendix ruptured, you can't expect to manage your finances when it's not your expertise to a degree that a professional can. And people take a step back and look at what's available out there in the marketplace. There's so much they shut down. This is why you want to reach out to a professional. Call Fred, call Free to set up an appointment. And I can't emphasize much how important that is, because he's the one who's going to lift that veil. He's the one who's going to get you to understand and see in easy terms really what it is. It's his job to sort through the thousands of possibilities out there for you and give you the one that makes sense for you. And I want to tie it back to the topic we're at today is if you're a homeowner and you are retired today, there's typically three choices you have to make. One is if you want to remain in your home, you have to answer that question. Well, the numbers are there. 84 out of 100 people want to remain in their home. So in order to do that, you either have a portfolio that allows that to happen, or you have to make an adjustment and change your plan, your targets. So you can remain in your home and do nothing, and in some cases suffer in silence, or really diminish what you have too quickly. You can use your home to accentuate your plan or rebuild your plan, or you can sell and downsize. Those are really only your three options. The most expensive, and ones that people usually rely on the most, is the selling and downsize, because all of the costs associated with that are experienced up front. The realtor commissions, the moving costs, the transition, and it's also exchanging a good investment for one that's a little less good. So typically someone will move from a single family detached home into a condominium. Well, single family detached homes increase in value because there's land ownership. Sure. Much greater than a condominium will. You now experience cash flow deficit in that transition, which sometimes it makes sense for people and the numbers work out, but now you have additional costs like strata fees and whatnot. So it's building that as part of the portfolio. In working with Fred, you can figure out which plan makes the most sense for you and which one you're going to use to activate. But either way, no matter what you do, you're going to be utilizing your home to fund retirement. It's just today a lot of people are doing it ad hoc and they don't really have a plan in place. Have a plan in place regardless of what choice you want to do. Meet with Fred, talk with him about this, and figure out which one of those makes sense.
What's the downside on a reverse mortgage?
I get asked this all the time, and I focus on the positive, the upsides. I don't even consider it a downside. People ask me, what are the pros and cons? What's behind the veil? And really, the only thing you have to understand, what I consider a benefit, not having to make a payment, that's the downside, is the mortgage is going to grow if you don't make a payment. So from that perspective, if you understand everything, the benefits that relate to it, so not only do you have a lifetime approval, if it's a spousal relationship for both the husband and the wife or the partner, that really protects you moving out through retirement. So if something were to happen to one of you, one spouse or one partner, there's no requalifying. There's no risk of foreclosure. There's no being forced to deal with the situation from the perspective of the home while you're dealing with the loss of a loved one. And that's a huge protection, and we're the only product that offers that. You're never going to have to requalify. You don't have to worry about somebody knocking on the door. It's very simple. Keeping house insurance on the property, making sure property taxes are up to date or on the property tax deferral program, really gives the retiree control of the home. And that really allows that a good plan to work best. So when you're looking at it and talking with Fred, just be open to the idea that having a managed plan is a good thing, and it will really help alleviate the stress that you might experience. Are you see that when people come to you for the first time, Fred, where they seem confused or they seem overwhelmed?
Well, the first thing that I do when I talk to clients, I basically say, look, tell me about how you spend your money. That's where I start. I want to see what your monthly cash layouts are.
And do they always know?
No. But I know the DBS statistics in each area. For example, if they don't know how much they spend on utilities, I usually give them $350 a month. Groceries, I give them $300 a month per adult in the house. Okay. The cost of the house may vary quite a bit. You got condo fees, maintenance fees, all that kind of stuff to consider. So there's the cost of the roof over the head. There's over your head. There's the cost of groceries, or the cost of travel, gifts, charitable donations, things like that, insurance premiums. So I find out what their total monthly expenditures are, and that figure is usually somewhere between $3,000 and $5,000 a month, most of the time. Sometimes it can get pretty high, up to 10 grand a month, but generally not, okay? So I can coach them. So I find out that they need $5,000 a month, we'll say, to live. Now, how will that number change the day you retire? The day you retire, you're planning to have your house all paid off? Or maybe you do a reverse mortgage so you don't have to make any more house payments. Okay, so you can take that out. You can say, when I want to travel more when I retire, so expenses are going to increase. So you do a second budget. Or you do the budget now, and then you look at that budget and say, well, you're currently paying $10,000 a year in interest expense. Maybe we can make that tax deductible. Okay? So you work on expenses. You try to reduce those expenses as much as possible. Then after you've done that, then you say, how can I increase income? Or where's that money going to come from? Well, if you're 65, you're going to qualify for the old age pension. You can probably take the Canada pension plan at 60, take it early. Okay? You have a private pension plan right now. That number kicks in. And maybe I end up with a deficit. And you got to solve that. So if there's a shortfall, then you say, okay, maybe we consider deferring your property taxes. That'll save you $250 a month. And maybe we do a reverse mortgage. Now you don't have to make your mortgage payment anymore. Maybe I can make my interest expense tax deductible. Maybe I can get a line of credit to pay off my credit cards where I'm paying 18% interest and I only have to pay 3.5%. So I improve the cash flow to the greatest extent possible. So in other words, when you retire, you're going to need $5,000 a month. Where's the money going to come from? There's the two questions. Now, I may have to rearrange assets. I may have to sell some stocks and buy some mutual funds to reduce risk. I may have to go into segregated funds to be able to avoid probate in the event of death, where you can name beneficiaries. So I work on cash flow. And you have a very important tool when it comes to cash flow, because a reverse mortgage has an extremely positive effect on cash flow.
Extremely positive.
So if you're short on cash flow right now, you got a reverse mortgage, all of a sudden, your cash flow has improved. Your discretionary income is much greater now than it used to be. Okay? And what's the downside? Well, you're going to have less money for the kids to inherit. You want to fix that? If you have kids. If you have no kids, it doesn't really matter, I don't think. But if you have kids, you want to fix that? Defer your property taxes, use the money to buy a life insurance policy. The kids would much rather be the beneficiary of a life insurance policy than they would to take over a house, perhaps. But maybe you need to get them all together. Maybe you need to sit down and talk to this person and the kids at the same time when we're talking about a reverse mortgage. Because I think if the kids really understood the situation, I don't believe for a single minute that they wouldn't support it.
I haven't come across, and we will often invite children to be part of the first visit.
Yeah.
I haven't come across a child that doesn't want the best interest of their parents in mind, and wanting them to enjoy their retirement.
Well, what child wouldn't they, when you think about it?
Yeah, and a lot of the parents, and when I say parents, I don't mean parents of young children, but the mindset sometimes doesn't always age with with life around them. So they're thinking of their kids in their minds. Their kids are still dependent on them and reliant on them. Whereas a lot of the clients we deal with, their children are my age and are working professionals, or they have families of their own. Their children are in their 30s or 40s or 50s even, and they're perfectly set. They're taking care of themselves. So that mindset of taking care of the children sometimes hasn't evolved as their children have grown, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's a good thing, but suffering for it today certainly isn't a good thing. There was a really interesting study back in 2013 by a couple of PhDs, and they called it "Reversing the Conventional Wisdom," and it was a great study. And what they actually showed is not only can tapping into your home equity allow your assets to last throughout life, is for those that do have money, and slowing the pace of redemption, becoming more tax efficient, you can actually have more at the end of plan or end of life to pass on to your estate than had you left that house alone.
You sure can.
There's actually lots of positives outside of the protections that are in place for people out there, and it's just being aware of that and talking to professionals and finding out about this stuff.
So your worst case scenario, what is it?
Well, worst case scenario is you live an extremely long life, and good on you. You live to, like you said, you're 120, 130, and and you do use all of your assets.
I took the reverse mortgage. I didn't have to make any payments, but I used up the assets.
Yeah, there will be a time frame where it will do that. Our average client is typically with us in the 12 to 15 year range, and typically, most of the time there's more than half of the value in the house left when it's time for us to get repaid.
Life expectancy becomes the key issue.
Absolutely.
So what is the life expectancy today for an average Canadian male?
Well, it's in the 80s now. It crossed that threshold, I think, in the last few years now. The one that's I think is really most telling when people are looking out, because for a Canadian male, I mean, typically we know as male, our spouses will outlive us. Darn it. But I can tell you, being a husband myself and a father of 3 girls, when I'm looking forward at my plan, I'm definitely looking at ways to protect my spouse when I'm gone, because there's a good chance, she's going to outlive me. And that's really where some of the protections for us come in place. I talked about it briefly in the first hour, but it's really worth noting. If you're in a spousal relationship, you and your partner, and you ask about what's the risk, the protections are huge, and this is the one that I think really drives home with me, and I know it means a lot to the husbands that are out there, is if something happens to me, my wife doesn't have to worry about requalifying. She doesn't have to worry about somebody coming knocking on the door. In fact, pretty much all the time, she's going to be covered, because she's going to have access to the equity in her home in a way that allows her to stay there. And really, hopefully she's dealing with the loss of me.
Are you suggesting that the spouse in this case be a joint owner on the house with rights of survivorship? What happens if it's held differently?
Yeah, so the house.
Tenants in common, for
Yeah,
example.
no, we don't do tenants in common. They do has to be joint tenancy.
Oh, good. Okay.
So that is a
That
requirement
fixes
of
that one.
our mortgages.
Yeah.
And something one of the callers brought up earlier, Ron, is we can lend on more than one property. So the situation that Ron was talking about, as long as the primary residence is part of it, we can lend on up to 3 properties. We put what's called a blanket mortgage across the multiple properties,
Okay.
and that's more common than you think. And one thing that I've seen, you brought up a really interesting point earlier, where some individuals are looking for, the snowbird type scenario where they're getting a home somewhere sunny and warm.
If I want to get a house in the desert, I can finance it with a reverse mortgage.
And some of them that's a great option, and that's a great legacy in itself, because
why not?
there's nothing owing on that, and they can leave that to the estate. I just did one where mom just bought for the kids a place in Whistler for them to all congregate at Christmas. And so the kids can come in who are spread out over the province. They're going to enjoy skiing in Whistler, and that is owned free and clear, and that's a legacy she's going to leave to her children and grandchildren. So they'll always have a place to go and meet, no matter what. And I mean, how amazing is that?
Well, it's the planning process. It's the planning process. It's sitting down and defining goals, objectives. It starts out by saying my hopes, my plans, my dreams, and my ambitions are. Okay? Now let's focus that a little bit more and say, okay, my hopes, plans, dreams, and I want to have a waterfront house. I'd like to have a nice boat. There's a place at the mouth of Thunderbird Marine out there, an island. It's got a house on it. I'm guessing, but it's got to be 30,000 square feet. Or something like that. It's unbelievable. There's 2 yachts that are tied up at the back door. They're mates. They're exactly the same. They look like they're brand new. They got to be worth about $1 million each. Wow. Now there's a dream for somebody. Yeah. Not me, but maybe somebody. Okay? That is what somebody might want. I saw a boat yesterday at my marina when I pulled in after fishing. It was gorgeous, 40 feet long, all polished mahogany, beautiful. We got talking to the guy that was power washing it after they took it out, and we asked him, "What's it worth?" It's $2 million. Didn't even have a command bridge. It was a sleek-looking vehicle. Oh, unbelievable! And what is it that you want? You have to start by saying, "This is what I want." It's a chance to dream. It's a chance to say, okay, I'm going to create my own future. Someone once said the best way to predict the future is to create it. So you got a chance to do this with a proper financial plan. So a proper financial plan begins by articulating your goals. You sit down with me and provide me with a menu of goals, and then I can go through them one at a time and say, well, this is realistic. Maybe we got to modify this a little bit, and so on. Because there's no point in you putting down a whole bunch of goals that are unrealistic. Like, I want to be Prime Minister of Canada. No hope. Not a hope. Not even the slightest hope.
I don't know. Based on what I've seen going on the last few weeks, I don't think you want to be. I don't think you really want that.
I'm kidding, actually. But really, there'd be no chance. Yeah. And that's the point. Okay. I mean, if I wanted to be mayor of North Vancouver, I might have a chance. But Prime Minister of Canada, no way.
Yeah, those goals are so important, and I want to share a story with you. One of my clients, and this is one of the sad stories, but the outcome is beautiful. One of my clients, Rosemary, asked when I first met her, really wasn't in a good mental state, wasn't in good physical health, and I asked her, what is it that you want? And she said, my bucket list. And I said, well, okay, sure.
That's a good term. That says it well.
What's your bucket list? What's your dreams? What do you want to accomplish in the rest of your life? And some of them were so simple, Fred, it made me cry. One of them was something as simple as on her top 10 list of things she wanted to do on her bucket list was to go for sushi, but she couldn't afford to go out and have lunch. Something simple. And I'd asked her how she was getting by, and she was walking. This is how she got her exercise. On recycling days, she was walking for up to 5 blocks in every direction, pulling bottles out of her neighbor's blue bins.
Oh my God.
Her recycling bins. And here's this lady who's living in a $1.5 million home. And so I said to her, I said, maybe think of it a little different, Rosemary. I said, what would you do tomorrow differently if you won the lottery, let's say? And she started listing off some of the things on her bucket list, going for sushi. So, I mean, to make a longer story short is we went out for sushi.
Oh, there you go.
We have a solution, and here's the best case scenario is I introduced her to a planner, and working with her planner, she has a plan in place that even if she lives to a ripe old age of 100, she's still going to have income. She's finally able to, she hasn't bought her grandkids Christmas or birthday presents in 7 years because she didn't have the money. She was living the last 5 to 6 days of the end of the month with no funds left, and just waiting for that CPP and old age security to come in, right? And
That's
then
sad.
and it's very sad. But the good news is it has a happy ending. Like the rest of her life is different. She actually sent me a note. She followed up with me, and she sent me a note. She just bought tickets to go back to Italy. She hasn't seen one of her sisters in almost 25 years, and she's going to go back to Italy and visit them. And you know, the re-diversification of her portfolio is what's made that possible. It's an amazing story, and I see stories like Rosemary every day, and there's a solution for the Rosemarys of the world out there.
So if you're out there, you're listening to the show and you just tuned in, I'm certified financial planner Fred Snyder. I'm talking to Clint Grayson, representing Home Equity Bank. We're talking about reverse mortgages and how this can free up some cash that you don't have to pay for. Okay? Free cash that you can invest and create income with the cash.
Absolutely.
Just as one example of many possibilities. We have to go to the break. When we come back, we'll continue to talk about reverse mortgages. Don't go away.
Fred Snyder.
I want you to imagine a person who is uptight, always worried, has high blood pressure, looking at their bank statement every time they turn around, and it's always red. Okay? They're spending more than they earn. They can't seem to get out of the hole. They're always telling people, I'm catching up, I'm trying to catch up. So they're always behind the 8 ball. And life isn't pretty. And they're not happy and they're frustrated. And they're not even fun to be around, those kind of people. There's a black cloud hanging over their head. Visualize that, because there's lots of people out there right now that are in that boat.
Fred Snyder.
And you have to ask yourself the question right now, what would happen if that happened to me? Because here I am. I'm sitting out here. I don't have a written financial plan. I haven't taken the time to sit down and think about my goals, the things that I really want to accomplish. I'm like a ship without a rudder. I have no direction. I'm procrastinating because I don't know what to do. And I'm still not doing anything about it. So instead of being proactive as I should be, I'm being reactive. I'm waiting for the bad stuff to happen and not controlling my destiny. If that's you, it's time to make a phone call.
Call Fred. Talk to Fred. Listen to Fred. Fred Snyder. Sunday mornings 9 to 11 on CIL 650. This is CISL Vancouver. Smooth and easy. CIL 650. You're listening to It's Your Money on CIL 650. Once again, here is Fred Snyder.
Okay, we're back. We're live. We're interactive. We're talking about your money, more importantly about your money and how to keep it. And I'm talking with Clinton Grayson, who is a business development manager with Home Equity Bank. And in our remaining time, we're going to interweave what we've been talking about with a kind of a case study. So, and this could be this could be you. It could be one of many, many, many. Only the names have been changed to protect the innocent, you know. There's no live names on here. But this is an actual case study. There is a portfolio of securities that this guy came to me with, and every one in red are losers.
Ouch.
And he says he's low risk. He's down $466,632, or 31% from the high, which is almost $1.5 million.
Ouch.
That's murder, okay? And that's not a suitable portfolio. And if we expand on that a little bit, here's the asset allocation of his various investments. The green ones are winners. He's making a little bit of money. The red ones, he's losers. The blue one is his largest holding. That's a utility stock. But that's the numbers. And this is what I do. So when somebody comes in to see me, I do the analysis, okay? I do the research. So here we have a case study. So these are the compound rates on the portfolio. This is his portfolio. This is mine by comparison. And then that's the compound rates, and these are the annualized rates, annual rates of return from 2011 through to 2014. So his return here was 8.8. He beat me in 2011. Outside of that, he didn't. Okay? So you got to know. You can't make decisions without knowledge. Knowledge is imperative. Let's take a call. Let's talk to Tracy from Vancouver. Tracy, welcome to the program.
Good morning, Fred.
Hiya, Tracy. How you doing?
Hello.
I tuned in late, so I wanted, earlier in the show, you talked about the risk, low, moderate, and high.
Yes.
And can you do, or would you give for your clients a percentage based on that? It's a low one, it's a low risk, something that drops maybe only 5% in the year.
Well, no, risk in my business, Tracy, is measured by a term called standard deviation. That's the amount of fluctuation. Now, every portfolio that I offer to a client, the portfolio has, if 1 is no risk, like a GIC, and 10 is moderate risk, I have nothing that exceeds 10 that I offer. Nothing.
Oh. No,
every single portfolio, including your own, because I know you're a client.
Right.
Every single portfolio that I have is under 10. Moderate risk is the max. And
okay, so you're 10,
yes,
which would be your highest risk.
Yes.
What is that for the percentage of the portfolio loss if, in fact, it fell?
Well, if
would it be 50%?
No, maybe 10.
Oh, so your deviation then is the percentage rate of the In other words, if I have $100,000 invested,
yes,
is a 10 is your.
If you go back, if you go back to 2008,
yeah,
which is the worst year I've ever seen since I've been in this business,
right?
My portfolio decline would be about 10%.
Okay,
and it fully recovered in a year. I'll show you in this chart as I go through the presentation I'm giving right now because it covers that. Okay,
and it's that would be the percentage loss if it fell.
Yes,
would be 10% would be the maximum.
On portfolio 10.6, which is 50-50, it's balanced. The portfolio loss, actually there was a gain on this in 5.57.
Okay.
So and it's the annual rate, which is over. This is the compound rate. So if I look, I don't have the annual rate at my fingertips, but it's about 10.
Okay. So it's a stand.
But I'll cover that in a minute. I'm coming to it anyway.
Okay. So low, medium, and high risk,
mm-hmm,
or low, medium, and high risk.
Well, high risk on standard deviation. If you take all the investment funds that are available out there, the riskiest is 78 by comparison.
Okay.
1 is none, and 78 is as high as it can get.
Okay. I want to also say I'm back in town. I had a beautiful vacation. I probably wouldn't have gone on a vacation had it not been for Fred and his helping me get my finances.
You know, Tracy,
order.
I have to tell this story. You have been to my office a good dozen times, attended many workshops, and I don't know how many dozen times I've told you to buy your own house.
And I didn't.
And you refused to do it because your objective is to travel. How many trips have you taken this year?
Well, I do about one large one every year. That's about.
I know there was one year you did 3.
Yeah.
And one of them was 4 months long.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
So you're doing what you want to do, and that's really what we're talking about here.
Exactly. And the trip, everybody thinks that a trip is a vacation. And for me, it was just an education. I wanted to learn about other parts of the world that I didn't learn about in school. And so we've done a lot of traveling and and it's broadened my horizons. I don't complain about Vancouver's weather. I don't complain about lack of transit when the bus is late. I don't complain about anything, because when I come home, I want to tell everybody out there that Vancouver is a beautiful spot
Indeed it
to
is.
live in. And we ought to be, it's caused a great deal of appreciation for where we do live and the things we have. You know, sewage collection, all that kind of thing. I was in places that were almost, you could see rats walking down the
let's
street.
not do that.
You know.
Tracy, I can't tell you how much I appreciate your call. We got to move along because I got to finish this.
Okay, thanks a lot.
Okay,
Bye.
thank you. Bye-bye. This is partially answers what Tracy's talking about. This is your 3-year risk comparison. This is the case study is 8.21. That's getting up there. The risk in my portfolio 10.6, which is the balanced one, is 4.59 by comparison. Okay.
It's almost half. Wow.
And there's your risk comparison further. So if you take portfolio 10.6, it's there, and that's just another way to express the same thing. So asset allocation comparison, when we compare the asset allocation, the case study is 100% Canadian equity. Mine is split between 50% bonds, 10% equities, cash 4%, other 1%, international equity 29%. So which of these is better, this one or this one? I think the answer is obvious.
It's pretty obvious. I think.
There's no fixed income. This is 100% Canadian equities. That again means high risk. There's no bonds in there to mitigate risk. And then the geographical diversification, we got 36% of the money in Canada. We got France 1%, Luxembourg 1%, UK 2%, Ireland 1%, China 1%, USA 56%. This particular client, 100% Canadian equity. That's high risk. No matter how you slice it and dice it, it's lousy diversification. Diversification by sector. So we got energy, financials. And again, if I take these and compare, the portfolio I offered is the yellow one. What he's got is the orange one. Too much energy. Oil is not performing right now. And you go right through the whole thing. There's every sector. So there's diversification by sector. Now my job is to educate people. I spend a lot of time, picture's worth 1,000 words. You can see it right there very clearly. That's the asset allocation. That didn't work. I don't know what happened there. Bear with me here for a minute. Best versus worst comparison. So there's your best case scenario, the time period between February 09 and February 09 for the case study. My portfolio was here. Beat me in that period, but that's just a short period of time. Worst case scenario is case one, lost far more money than me, which is this one here. So you can see those numbers. Historic annual return graph. I promised Tracy I would show this. These are year over year. Now these are annualized rates of return, and my situation is the green one. So I won here. I didn't win in 2013. I won every other case. Maybe here it's down a little bit. And the compound rates of return, which is the most important part of the whole thing. So there's the compound rates of return. But this is the most important one of all. So here we have a chart. Covers the time period December 06 to December 2014. So there is the performance for the first period of time, second period of time, and this is on the case study. So if we look at this here, case study did okay there on that green dot. Here, we didn't make any money in this entire period of time. Whatever it was worth here, it's worth the same over here. That's like 4 or 5 years.
Yeah. Wow.
And then did okay here. So did okay here, but overall that's a lousy performing portfolio. And this suggests if he owned it at that time. Oh, and I forgot that little add on there. Okay. Now let's superimpose, and there's the current market declines. And you put my portfolio in here, beat me there. But what's most important is, that's what I went down by and back.
So down lower, back
Yeah.
quicker.
Down lower, back quicker, less volatility.
Yeah.
It's all there. So I double emphasize this. There's the down period. There's my down period by comparison. So that represents $17,270 in the case study versus $20,617 in mine, based on a $10,000 investment at the
And
beginning.
we're only talking about $10,000, and it's a $3,000 difference, more than a $3,000
Yeah.
difference.
Well, you want to make it 100, multiply everything by 10.
Exactly. Wow.
It's all relative. So we don't have any callers on the line. We got open lines. We got about 10 minutes before we have to get out of here. So again, did you learn anything today?
I've learned a lot today. You've actually brought a question to my mind based on what you just reviewed there.
Mm-hmm.
Now, in the scenario, your line is pretty rosy.
Pretty steady.
Yeah, it's pretty steady. In that one drop there, now we're assuming in this scenario that somebody is relying on this for income at point. They're in retirement,
Yes.
so they're drawing down. Is it a different strategy pre-retirement? Because, for your clients that you have,
it really shouldn't be.
shouldn't be.
No.
So in that down period, would it make more sense to draw maybe on the house
Yes,
and less on the investments when they're down?
I agree. Totally.
And then when they're doing great, maybe pay some of it back? Or
Yes, absolutely. There's a question that popped up in my mind. Can I make payments against my reverse mortgage? Let's suppose I decide to reduce the amount.
Yeah, so even though you're not required to make any payments, you can pay all the interest with no penalty each year, or a combined 10% of principal and interest each year with no penalty.
So I can actually pay it down if I want to.
That's right. So if, when the portfolio, based on what you're showing up there, that little dip, had they relied more on the house then, left the portfolio alone, it wouldn't have been affected as much, even less. And then when things were rosy, they could actually pay some of it back if they wanted.
Okay. So again, I still haven't got it clear in my own mind, but this worst case scenario, what's the worst thing that could happen? I still haven't got that clear.
You live too long.
Oh,
or
yeah.
you live too long, or if there was a crash in the housing market.
That's a mixed blessing. So
Yeah.
let's say there's a like I remember in 1981, I had a house in the village in North Vancouver that dropped from 250 to 150 in a month.
Yeah.
So if I had a reverse mortgage on the house, how would that have affected me?
Well, the good news is you wouldn't have had to sell. We would have you just stay there. Time's on your side. But if you had to sell, if you were in a negative equity position, we would eat the loss as a bank. That's covered under our fair market value guarantee.
Okay. But I still have to sell my house then.
You don't have to. Once you're approved with us, they're lifetime approvals. You can live there. It puts you back in control. You can stay there until you decide to move or sell or pass away.
What is the downside though?
Well, that's a good question. I mean,
I don't see the downside.
yeah, I think a lot of the myths that exist out there have to do a lot more with we're exposed to a lot of American media here in Canada, and there's 4 different providers in the States that have very different rules than us.
Okay. Well, give me an example.
Well, I mean, if we go back to 2008, where there was a worldwide recession, crash. Not only were portfolios impacted, as you can actually significantly see on the graph that you have up, is houses were impacted as well, the same. Now, for some, because we give lifetime approvals, there's no risk of foreclosure, no risk of us coming and knocking on the door. That's not the same with all the products that are offered in the United States. So in some cases, people were foreclosed on and forced out of their home, which really gave a real bad taste in the mouth around the terminology reverse mortgage. But that didn't happen here. That didn't apply here. In fact, our clients, they slept nice at night knowing that they didn't have to worry and they still had access to their money.
And
So
you're government regulated too.
we are a Schedule I Canadian bank, and we are government regulated. And the best news is in that 2008 period, the money that you were approved for, even if you didn't tap into all of it, during that downturn, you still had access to it. So we didn't restrict any access to those funds. Once you're approved with us, you're approved for life.
So no downside, really.
Yeah, really. I mean, it's to me, it's part of my retirement plan looking forward. And I honestly don't understand for homeowners how, activating the home isn't part of their plan.
Well, I think it should be.
I think it should be too.
Even if there's kids involved.
Yeah, I refer people to.
You've changed my thinking a little bit on it.
Yeah.
I got to tell you.
Well,
I say if you don't have any kids, it doesn't matter. But if you got kids, maybe it does. But maybe it really doesn't.
Yeah, maybe it really doesn't. And especially if you're a mid to high net worth client today, then you should be managing all of your assets, not just some of them.
And and I mean, again, if you have children, they should have proper life insurance in place. And if they don't, you could have a life insurance policy yourself, providing you're insurable, and defer your property taxes and use that money to pay the premium.
Yeah, I think your phone should be ringing off the hook.
Let's say that you can buy a $300,000 insurance policy with the deferred property taxes, and you're insurable. You pass away, the insurance or the estate or the children are going to receive $300,000 tax-free. What's the chances of that reverse mortgage exceeding that?
Well, it depends on how they take it.
I guess it depends on the amount.
If you're doing a monthly, income advantage plan advance, so you're getting money every month out of your home, something simple like that. I mean, $500 a month for the next 15 years, even if interest rates go up 3%, it's still only gonna be about $140,000. So even if interest rates doubled, which is there's the risk of that as reality, you're still covered. That $300,000 policy would more than cover the outstanding balance on the mortgage.
So if somebody's out there and they want to get a reverse mortgage, what do they do?
Well, if you're listening to this show, call Fred's office, ask him about it, and we'll set up a time to meet. If you want to, you can call me directly, but I would encourage you to talk to Fred, because having a plan in place is the smartest thing you can do, no matter what.
Would you advise anybody who gets it? Here's a good question. Client has a reverse mortgage. Should they have a financial plan to go along with it?
Absolutely. I encourage every client that I meet, if they're not dealing with a planner, I encourage them. I'll introduce them to somebody. Okay. It's imperative. So
you want to get a financial plan? Give Frida a call. You want to get a reverse mortgage? Call Frida or you. What's your phone number, Clint?
My direct line is 778-846-2346, and my toll-free number is 1-866-336-2447.
And if you want to reach me, you reach me. Call me on my cell phone, 644-7526. Or once again, Frida down at the office at area code 604-737-3512. Long distance, 1-800-661-1495. See you same time, same station next week. Bye for now. And Clint, thanks for being on.
Thanks for having me on, Fred.
Take care.
If you'd like Fred to review your portfolio, call his office right now at 604-737-3512. That's 604-737-3512.